Have you ever walked into a room and felt watched, but not by people? I'm not talking about cameras or phones or someone lurking behind you. I mean that deeper feeling, that energy, like something ancient is studying you. Maybe you were walking in the forest and a bird suddenly stopped mid-flight, or you caught the eyes of a dog who stared just a little too long, or a cat sat still, unblinking, as if it knew something you didn't. That's not just coincidence. That's recognition. And not from people, but from something far older, far wiser, nature itself. Animals don't speak, but they see. They don't care about your status, your clothes, your job title, or how many followers you have. They don't need words, hashtags, or applause. They tune into your energy, your frequency, your essence. Before people ever recognize your power, animals feel it. Before the world sees your light, animals already know you're burning. Because animals don't follow noise. They follow truth. And if you are a chosen one, someone carrying a divine spark, a purpose, a calling, they will see you before anyone else does. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt different even when you tried to fit in? Like you're in a room full of people, laughing, talking, pretending, but you can feel something pulling you deeper, whispering, you weren't made for this. That's not alienation. That's awakening. That's the quiet beginning of the chosen. The truth is, not everyone is meant to blend in. Some of us were designed to break patterns, confront darkness, and light paths for others. And long before the world gives you permission to rise, the earth, the air, the animals, they already know. Imagine this. You're walking through a dense forest. Sunlight filters through the canopy above. Birds are chirping, insects buzzing, leaves crunching beneath your feet. But then something shifts. It's not what you see, it's what you feel. A presence, a stillness. Like the world has paused and is watching. You look up and lock eyes with a deer, or a raven, or an owl. And suddenly, you're not just another passerby. You've been seen, felt, as if your soul just exposed itself without saying a word. That moment, it's not random, it's spiritual. Across cultures, across continents, through ancient legends and sacred texts, there is a universal truth. Every generation has its chosen ones. In some traditions, they're prophets. In others, healers. Some call them awakened, some call them cursed, but they all carry the same thing. A deeper sense of purpose that cannot be explained, only lived. They don't chase titles. They walk with clarity. They don't force their power. They become it through pain, through discipline, through silence. And nature always sees it first. Let me tell you why this matters. We live in a world obsessed with outer validation. We look to people, to strangers on screens to tell us who we are. But the truth, the truest mirrors aren't held by people. They're found in animals. Each one is a messenger, a symbol, a gatekeeper. When an animal reacts to you differently, pauses, stares, circles, it's not just animal instinct, it's sacred alignment. The universe is whispering, there's something in you worth protecting, worth guiding, worth awakening. You see, animals aren't distracted the way we are. They don't scroll. They don't lie to themselves. They don't overthink. They sense. And that's what makes their recognition so powerful. Because when a lion respects you, when an owl watches you, when a wolf chooses you, it means your energy has surpassed ego. You've stepped into something beyond logic. You've entered your higher nature. That's not to be taken lightly. Now listen carefully. This isn't just poetic language. This is transformation. Every animal that recognizes a chosen one isn't just acknowledging them. They're reflecting something back. They're saying, here is what you must embody. Here is the path you must walk. Here is what you carry and why you must protect it. Because being chosen isn't about being special. It's about being responsible for your thoughts, your energy, your impact. It's about rising above comfort, silence, mediocrity, and living like your presence matters. Because it does. So let me ask you this. Have you been ignoring the signs? Have you dismissed your gut feelings, your spiritual pull, your divine instincts just to fit in? Have you silenced your roar, folded your wings, numbed your empathy just to be accepted? Because if you have, then you're not alone, but you're also not free. And now is the moment to change that. We are about to explore 9 sacred animals, not just for what they are, but for what they see in you. Each one holds a mirror. Each one calls out a quality in you that's been sleeping. The courage of a lion, the vision of an eagle, the intuition of a wolf, the compassion of a dolphin, the wisdom of an owl, the resilience of a horse, the adaptability of a fox, the patience of a turtle, and the transformation of a butterfly. You won't just learn about these animals, you'll learn about yourself, the self beneath the noise, the self you were born to become. Before we dive in, I want you to pause, take a deep breath, and write this in the comments right now. A&D, I am ready to awaken my destiny. Not for me, not for the algorithm, but for you to declare it to the universe, and more importantly, to yourself. Say it out loud. Feel it in your chest. I am ready to awaken my destiny. If this speaks to you, if something is stirring inside, like you're finally being reminded of who you truly are, then like this video, subscribe, and stay with me till the end. Because what you discover today might just change how you walk through this world forever. Everyone wants to be a lion until it's time to stand alone in the wilderness. People love the roar. They admire the strength, the dominance, the fearlessness. But they forget that before the lion becomes the king of the jungle, he walks alone. No audience, no crown, just silence and instinct. Real leadership doesn't start with applause. It starts in solitude. It begins the moment you stop trying to prove yourself and start becoming yourself. Let's talk about courage, not the loud kind, but the real kind. Most people think courage is about being bold in public, posting the quote, taking the risk, speaking up on a stage. But true courage, the kind that transforms lives, happens when nobody's watching. It's saying no when everyone expects a yes. It's walking away when your heart is breaking. It's choosing discipline when distractions are screaming for your attention. A lion doesn't roar all day. He doesn't need to. He roars once and the entire jungle listens. Why? Because it's not the volume of your voice that commands respect. It's the depth of your presence. If you've ever been in a moment where your whole body told you to run, but your spirit told you to stand still, that's the lion inside of you speaking. See, leadership is often misunderstood. It's not about controlling others. It's not about being the loudest person in the room or having all the answers. It's about integrity. It's about clarity. It's about walking a path so rooted in purpose that others follow, not because you asked, but because they're inspired. Real leaders don't lead by force. They lead by example. So let me ask you, do you stand firm when life tests you? Or do you collapse under the weight of opinions? Do you hold your truth when it's inconvenient? Or do you shrink to make others comfortable? The lion doesn't bend for approval. He doesn't trade power for popularity. That's what makes him king. We live in a time where everyone wants to be seen, but very few want to be still. Everyone's chasing visibility. But the ones who matter, the ones who rise, they're mastering invisibility first. They're building strength in silence, sharpening discipline in darkness, training character in private long before the spotlight ever finds them. The lion is not respected because of what he says. He's respected because of how he moves. Let me share something with you that changed my life. When I left the noise of the world, the distractions, the opinions, the constant pull for validation, and chose to live in a monastery, I expected it to be peaceful. But do you know what I found instead? Silence so loud, it exposed every fear I'd been hiding. Stillness so deep, it forced me to face the truth of who I really was. I didn't become stronger by adding more noise. I became stronger by sitting in the silence and letting it sharpen me. That's what the lion teaches us. It's not about roaring louder. It's about becoming so grounded, so centered, that you don't need to roar at all. Think about this. The lion isn't the biggest animal in the jungle. He's not the fastest, not the smartest, but he walks with a certain energy, a certainty, a calm dominance. He knows who he island. And because of that, everyone else does too. So how do you embody that? Start small, not with declarations, not with showmanship, but with daily choices that build internal leadership. Speak truth, even when it shakes your voice. Set boundaries, even when they cost you popularity. Make decisions even when you don't have full clarity, but your heart knows what's right. Courage doesn't mean you're not scared. It means fear doesn't get to drive. And let me give you a truth many people don't want to hear. Lions don't chase. They don't chase validation. They don't chase people. They don't chase every opportunity. They wait. They watch. And when the time is right, they move with intention. This is a lesson for all of us. If you're constantly chasing approval, constantly trying to prove your worth, you're leaking energy in all the wrong places. True leadership is not reactive. It's responsive. It's intentional. It's rooted in clarity. And here's the part most people miss. Lions conserve energy. They don't waste time fighting meaningless battles. They don't entertain drama, gossip, or low-value pursuits. Why? Because they know their purpose. And once you know your purpose, you stop spending energy on anything that isn't aligned with it. So ask yourself, what am I giving energy to that's beneath my calling? What distractions am I feeding that are starving my future? A leon doesn't fight every noise. He walks and the noise silences itself. And you know what happens when you embody this energy? People start treating you differently. You won't have to beg for respect. You won't have to demand attention. You won't need to chase love or prove your value. People will feel your presence before you even speak, because the real roar is who you are, not what you say. Let's end this section with a challenge. For the next 24 hours, don't prove, don't perform, don't pretend. Just observe, move with purpose. Speak only when it adds value. Stand tall even in silence. And when doubt creeps in, ask yourself, what would the lion in me do right now? Then do it. Even if it's scary, even if it's unpopular, even if it's lonely, because that's where real courage lives. And that's how real leaders are born. Everyone can see, but not everyone has vision. We live in a world obsessed with what's right in front of us, the next deadline, the next notification, the next distraction. But true leaders, chosen ones, they don't just look, they rise. They ascend above the noise, above the panic, above the chaos of the crowd, because vision isn't about having eyes, it's about having altitude. Let's talk about the eagle. This isn't just a bird, it's a messenger of perspective. The eagle doesn't flap around like a pigeon, panicked and noisy. It glides in stillness, soaring where the air is thin, where most can't even breathe. And that's the difference between people who chase comfort and people who chase calling. Most people stay low, close to the ground. It feels safe, predictable, busy. But the eagle chooses solitude over noise, stillness over speed, elevation or ego. You see, most people are obsessed with sight. What do I see in front of me? But the chosen, they ask a better question. What does this look like from above? What does this problem look like from 10,000 feet? What does this argument, this setback, this heartbreak look like when I zoom out? Perspective is power. That's why the eagle doesn't fear storms. While other birds seek shelter, the eagle flies into the wind, using it to lift itself even higher. Why? Because the eagle understands something most people don't. Adversity isn't always here to break you. Sometimes it's here to raise you. Let me ask you something. When life hits you, do you spiral down into the emotion, the drama, the confusion, or do you pause, breathe, and ask, what is this teaching me? Because that's what the eagle does. It doesn't avoid pressure, it transforms it. When I was training in the ashram, we had a ritual every morning. Sit in silence and observe, not to judge, not to react, just to see the world from above your emotions. That stillness gave me clarity. It helped me stop making decisions from fear and start making them from vision. That's what leaders do. That's what chosen ones must do. Let me tell you a secret. Most people are blind, not because their eyes don't work, but because their perspective is too low. They can only see what's urgent. They miss what's important. They react to life instead of rising above it. Eagles don't waste energy flapping at every little gust of wind. They lock their wings. They trust the current. And that's the key, trusting that where life is lifting you isn't a mistake, even if it's uncomfortable. So how do you cultivate eagle vision? 1, create distance from the noise. Step back. Stop scrolling. Stop comparing. The eagle doesn't flock, it flies solo. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's the space where clarity is born. Most people are drowning in opinions. They've never even heard their own voice. Spend time alone. Not distracted. Not entertained. Just quiet. That's where you reconnect with your higher self. 2, choose observation over reaction. Before you make a decision, rise above it. Ask yourself, is this reaction based on fear or truth? Will this matter in 5 days or 5 years? What's the higher road I could take? Don't let temporary feelings destroy permanent peace. Like the eagle, train your mind to respond with strategy, not impulse. 3, embrace the storm. This is the hardest one, but hear me clearly. When storms come, you have 2 choices. You can crash and retreat like the flock, or you can be the eagle. You can open your wings and ride the very wind that scares you. That conflict, that rejection, that delay, it's not always the enemy. Sometimes it's a divine elevator taking you higher, faster, stronger. But you can't rise if you panic. You rise when you trust. Here's what I love about the eagle most. It doesn't cling. It doesn't fear separation. It doesn't attach to every branch or every bird. It knows its strength is in the skies. It was built for vision, not for comfort. And you weren't made for average either. You were made to see what others can't, to believe in things before they manifest, to live with a depth that scares shallow people. And that's okay. Not everyone will understand your flight path. Some will say you've changed. Some will say you're distant. But don't lower your altitude to make people feel comfortable. Don't clip your wings just because others are scared to fly. Chosen ones fly different. And that difference is what makes them necessary. If you're someone who's felt distant lately, who's been losing interest in shallow conversations, who's craving deeper connections, higher truths, bigger visions, you're not broken. You're just ascending. You're finally tired of crawling through the mud with people who fear the sky. And maybe, just maybe, you're starting to remember who you were before the world told you to shrink. Let me leave you with this. The eagle is respected not because it chases things. It's respected because of where it lives. So start living up there. Elevate your thoughts. Elevate your circle. Elevate your standards. Elevate your life. Because when you rise above noise, you start attracting clarity. You start recognizing truth. And you start remembering that you were never meant to stay grounded forever. You were made to soar. There comes a point in your life where your soul demands loyalty not from others, but from you. Not loyalty to your job, not loyalty to your image, but loyalty to your values, your intuition, your inner compass. The wolf teaches us this, not through noise, not through performance, but through presence, precision, and unwavering loyalty to what matters most. Let's get something clear. The wolf doesn't follow crowds. It follows energy. It follows instinct. It doesn't bark for approval. It howls for connection, real connection, the kind that isn't filtered, fake, or forced. A chosen one learns early. You will not thrive by pleasing everyone. You will thrive by aligning with your pack, and most importantly, with your path. I remember years ago, I was surrounded by people who said all the right things. They applauded the version of me they wanted, not the one I was becoming. And it cost me. not in friendships, but in identity. Until one day, I sat in silence and asked myself, am I being loyal to others at the cost of betraying myself? And if you're honest, you've asked that too. Because most of us have learned how to be loyal to jobs, partners, trends, and roles, but we've forgotten how to be loyal to ourselves. The wolf doesn't make that mistake. Wolves are loyal, fiercely loyal, but not to everyone. They're loyal to their pack. The select few that earn it, they don't need a crowd. They need truth. They build families based on trust, not appearance. They don't betray their own just to be accepted by outsiders. The question is, are you surrounded by people who feel like a pack or like a prison? Because your circle will either protect your path or poison it. And loyalty, it's not just about who you protect. It's about how you show up when no one's watching. It's about whether you honor your inner voice even when it whispers something uncomfortable. The wolf is guided by instinct, not the latest opinion, not the trend, not the crowd, and neither should you. How many times have you heard the voice in your chest say, this isn't right, this isn't love, this isn't your path, this isn't your place? But instead of honoring it, you overrode it. You justified, you stayed, you said, maybe I'm being too sensitive. But that's not sensitivity, that's discernment. The wolf doesn't second guess its gut, it follows it. That's why wolves don't just survive, they thrive in the wild, because they trust what most people ignore. Let me be blunt. If you keep betraying your intuition to avoid conflict, you will build a life that looks good, but feels empty. You'll smile in photos. You'll say the right things. But deep down, you'll know you traded inner peace for outer performance. And the cost of that is far too high. So how do you reclaim the wolf within? 1. Honor your inner compass, even when it's inconvenient. Stop outsourcing your decision. Stop needing 5 opinions before you trust yourself. You don't need more advice. You need more alignment. Start small. Say no when it's a no. Rest when you're drained. Speak up when you feel unseen. Leave when your spirit is shrinking. This is how you retrain your nervous system to recognize safety, not in people-pleasing, but in self-honoring. 2. Choose your pack wisely. Wolves don't run with just anyone. They run with those who match their frequency. Not the loudest, but the most loyal. So look around. Who drains your energy the moment they enter the room? Who forces you to shrink just to make them feel okay? Who claps when you struggle, but disappears when you rise? Let them go, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Because every time you make room for peace, the right people find you. 3. Learn the art of solitude. The wolf doesn't fear time alone. In fact, solitude is sacred. It's where clarity is born. It's where the noise dies down and your instincts rise up. Some of the strongest seasons of your life will be the most silent. You won't have a cheering section. You won't have applause. But what you will have is the voice of your soul becoming louder than the world. And when that voice becomes your compass, you are unshakable. Here's the truth. No one wants to say, sometimes the path of the chosen one is lonely. You will outgrow people who were never growing. You will disappoint those who are only clapping for the old version of you. You will be misunderstood, mislabeled, and maybe even mocked. But the wolf doesn't back down when it's misunderstood. It moves forward with its head high, its eyes sharp, and its heart loyal. And let me say this to the part of you that still wants to be liked. You don't need everyone to understand your journey. You just need to stop abandoning it. You were born with a compass. You don't need a map, just the courage to follow it. You don't need more signs, just the silence to hear them. And you don't need more approval, just the integrity to live in alignment. So today, I challenge you to ask, where have I been loyal to others, but disloyal to myself? Where have I silenced my intuition out of fear of judgment? Who in my life feels like home and who just feels like history? Answer honestly, then act accordingly. Because loyalty isn't just a trait, it's a frequency. And when you honor it, you rise. Most people think kindness is soft, gentle, weak. But compassion, real, deep, soul-anchored compassion is one of the strongest forces on earth. It's easy to be cold. It's easy to shut down. It's easy to live guarded, armored, untouchable, but it takes courage to feel deeply. It takes strength to stay open in a world that teaches you to close. That's why the dolphin is sacred. Not because it's the biggest, not because it's the fastest, but because it's the most emotionally intelligent. The dolphin isn't powerful because it dominates. It's powerful because it connects, and in that connection, it heals. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you slowed down, really slowed down to feel with someone instead of just for them? Not offering a solution, not rushing to fix it, just being fully present, heart open, ego off, judgment gone. That's what dolphins do. They're not passive. They're not avoidant. They are present, awake, attuned. They show up not to take, but to give, not to impress, but to understand. Compassion is not weakness. It is spiritual maturity. It's the ability to hold space for pain, yours and others, without flinching, without fleeing. Dolphins are known to protect other species. They've rescued humans from shark attacks. They've guided boats to safety. They've comforted other wounded animals, even ones they have no reason to help. Why? Because they live from service, not survival. Chosen ones embody this. You don't live to impress. You live to impact. You can fake intellect. You can fake charisma, but you cannot fake compassion. People feel it. They feel when your energy is safe. They feel when your presence calms their nervous system. And in a world that's loud, aggressive, competitive, that calm becomes magnetic. That's why people are drawn to you when you're compassionate. Not because you talk the most, but because your presence feels like peace. Let me tell you what most people get wrong. They think compassion means sacrificing yourself, that to help others, you must burn yourself out. That being kind means being walked over. That's not compassion. That's codependence. That's martyrdom rooted in fear. True compassion doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It means saying yes to what's aligned and no to what drains your soul. The dolphin doesn't heal others by destroying itself. It shares its energy, but it also knows when to swim away. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You can't be the light if you're constantly in the dark. So here's the practice. Start with self-compassion. This is where most people fail. They offer love to everyone else, but shame to themselves. They say, I'm here for you, to others, but you're not enough, to themselves. You have to hold space for your own wounds first. Not judge them, not numb them, but see them. Start by asking, what parts of me am I still trying to hide? What old pain am I punishing myself for? Where do I need to forgive myself? That's where your healing begins. Because when you learn to be kind to yourself, your kindness to others becomes real, powerful, and sustainable. Now, let's talk about connection. Dolphins don't live in isolation. They move in pods. They build real bonds, not transactional relationships. They play, they protect, they mourn, they celebrate. That's emotional range. And that's what we're missing. We've been taught to suppress, to stay strong. But chosen ones understand connection is strength. Vulnerability is power. We often say, I don't want to be a burden, so we hide, we isolate, we suffer in silence. But dolphins would never let a member of the pod swim alone through a storm. And you shouldn't either. You are not here to carry everything by yourself. You are not weak for needing support. You are not soft for choosing love. And if you've been betrayed, mistreated, taken for granted, I get it. But don't let pain turn your heart to stone. Let it refine your compassion, not destroy it. Because real power is this. Even after everything, I still choose to love. That doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means refusing to let darkness define your light. So how do we embody the dolphin's strength? 1. Practice active presence. Put your phone down. Look people in the eyes. Listen without waiting to speak. Make someone feel seen, not fixed. That alone is healing. 2, serve without agenda. Not everything has to be strategic. Help because it's who you are, not because of what you'll gain. 3, protect your peace. Set boundaries. Say no. Walk away from chaos. Being compassionate doesn't mean you tolerate toxicity. It means you love people enough to protect yourself from their pain spilling onto you. When you embody the dolphin's wisdom, you stop performing for people who don't appreciate you. You stop sacrificing yourself for people who wouldn't do the same. And you start choosing authentic connection over shallow attention. You realize that being warm in a cold world isn't weakness, it's warrior energy. And maybe the world needs less noise and more people like you who lead with heart. People who don't just hear, they listen. People who don't just speak, they feel. People who don't just exist, they heal. Because when you show up with compassion, you remind others of their own humanity. And in a world that's forgotten how to feel, that is a sacred gift. So ask yourself today, where have I been withholding compassion from myself? Who needs my presence more than my perfection? How can I connect more deeply starting now? Compassion isn't something you do. It's who you become. And when you live that way, you don't just walk through the world, you transform it. In a world addicted to noise, stillness becomes a superpower. We live in the loudest time in human history. Everyone's shouting, posting, arguing, trying to be heard, trying to be seen, trying to be right. But the owl, the symbol of wisdom across cultures and time, doesn't compete with noise. It waits, it watches, and when it moves with precision. It doesn't need to be loud because when you know, you don't have to announce, you just become. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat with your thoughts and didn't run from them? Most people can't go 10 minutes in silence. They panic because silence strips away the distractions. It forces you to face you without filters, without followers, without the mask. But the owl thrives in that space. It doesn't fear the darkness. It owns it. Stillness is not passivity. Stillness is strategy. The owl sits still, not because it's lazy, but because it's calculating. It listens to everything others miss. It sees what others overlook. And when the time comes, it acts with clarity, with confidence, without hesitation. That's wisdom. Not rushing, not reacting, not getting swept away in the drama, but choosing your moment with discernment. I used to think wisdom was about knowing the most, reading the most, studying the most, but I've learned wisdom isn't information. It's integration. It's not how much you know, it's how deeply you live it. It's how you apply it when life gets messy. It's who you are when you have nothing to prove. The owl doesn't just know things. It understands when to apply them and when to stay silent. Here's something that might sting. Most people are exhausted not from effort, but from emotional reactivity. They're constantly triggered. They jump into every argument. They defend themselves at every turn. That's not power. That's noise. The owl doesn't waste time arguing with the flock. It rises above, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. And that awareness makes you dangerous. Let's talk about intuition. The owl has night vision. It sees in the dark, not just physically, but symbolically. It's the inner knowing that whispers, this person isn't right for me. This deal sounds good, but it's off. This moment is mine, I feel it. That's intuition. And the more you honor your stillness, the louder that whisper becomes. But here's the hard part. The world trains you to ignore that voice, to doubt it, to Google it, to get a second opinion, to overthink it. But the owl doesn't ask for consensus. It knows. And so do you if you're willing to slow down long enough to listen. So how do you embody the wisdom of the owl? 1. Embrace sacred stillness. Start your day in silence. Before the world floods your mind, claim your space. Meditate, journal, breathe. This isn't trendy. It's transformative. Stillness rewires your nervous system. It teaches your body safety. It gives your mind space to make conscious choices instead of reactive ones. 2, replace reaction with reflection. Not everything needs your opinion. Not every insult needs a comeback. Not every invitation is worth your time. Wisdom is knowing where to spend your energy and where to walk away. Before you react, ask, is this coming from truth or ego? Will this matter in a year? Am I speaking to be heard or to heal? Owls don't speak often, but when they do, the forest listens. 3, cultivate curiosity. The wisest people I know aren't the ones with the most answers. They're the ones asking the most intentional questions. They don't assume, they observe. They seek to understand before they try to convince. The owl doesn't leap into chaos. It studies, and that's your challenge too. Slow down enough to understand the why behind your emotions, behind your patterns, behind your pain. That's how you grow beyond your old identity. Let's get practical. If you want to be respected like the owl, you need to stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You need to stop posting your every move for validation. You need to stop wasting energy on the irrelevant, because here's the truth. When you master your mind, you master the moment. And when you master the moment, you become unstoppable. Wisdom isn't about domination. It's about liberation. It's about being so deeply aligned with your purpose that nothing sways you off track. I once heard a monk say, the wise are not the ones who know the most. The wise are the ones who need the least. That hit me because wisdom simplifies. It subtracts what's not essential. It sharpens what matters. And in that simplicity, you become clear, not distracted, not scattered, not overextended, but focused. And when you're focused, you're dangerous. Not because you hurt people, but because you can't be manipulated anymore. You've outgrown the games. You've seen the pattern. You've studied the terrain. You've become the owl. So let me ask you, where in your life have you been reacting instead of reflecting? Where are you seeking noise when you really need stillness? What truth have you been too distracted to sit with? Because when you answer those questions honestly, you step into a version of yourself that no longer needs to force anything. You attract through awareness. You move with mastery. You speak only when it matters. That's the mark of a chosen one. Everyone wants to arrive at greatness, but no one wants to carry the weight of getting there. We glamorize the finish line, the success, the breakthrough, the freedom, but we underestimate the journey, the long, lonely miles no one claps for. The horse doesn't complain. It doesn't whine. It just keeps going with quiet power and relentless heart. That's the energy of a chosen one. Not flashy, not loud, but unshakable. Endurance is not just physical. It's spiritual. It's emotional. It's soul-deep resilience. It's the ability to move forward even when your mind says stop, even when the path disappears, even when no one is watching, applauding, or understanding. And no animal reflects this better than the horse, majestic, grounded, and fiercely devoted. The horse teaches us that strength isn't proven in one moment of force. It's revealed in the daily decision not to quit. Let me ask you this. Are you tired right now? Not just physically, but soul tired? The kind of tired that doesn't come from doing too much, but from carrying too many emotional burdens for too long? If so, I want you to listen closely, because the horse reminds us of something powerful. You don't need to be faster. You need to be more consistent. We've been taught to admire hustle, but hustle without rest isn't resilience, it's self-destruction. The horse doesn't sprint endlessly. It paces itself. It knows when to push and when to pause. Chosen ones don't burn out to prove a point. They honor the long game. They know this journey is a marathon, not a moment. When I lived in the monastery, one of our daily practices was walking meditation. Slow, deliberate steps, each one intentional. I used to get impatient. I wanted to get there faster. But one of my mentors told me something I never forgot. Rushing doesn't get you there faster. It gets you there emptier. That's endurance, not chasing, not rushing, but carrying your purpose with presence. The world teaches you to value speed, but the soul values depth. And depth requires endurance, not just of the body, but of the spirit. Because the real tests don't come when you're at your best. They come when you're exhausted. When the vision is blurry, when progress feels invisible, and yet you keep showing up, you keep walking, you keep believing, that's the horse. So how do you cultivate this kind of strength? 1, build discipline, not just motivation. Motivation is fleeting, it's emotional, temporary, unreliable. But discipline is a system, a structure, a sacred contract with your future self. Even when you're tired, even when no one's watching, even when it doesn't feel good, the horse doesn't move because it feels like it. It moves because it was built for the journey. So stop waiting to feel ready. Start building the rituals that make you unstoppable. 2, prioritize recovery as much as effort. Let me say this clearly. Rest is not weakness. Recovery is not laziness. The strongest people I know don't grind nonstop. They know when to stop, breathe, recharge. The horse doesn't run 24/7s. It eats, it drinks, it finds stillness. The same goes for you. Sleep deeply, hydrate, fuel your body with intention, spend time in nature, turn your phone off, unplug, not to escape, but to reset. You can't pour into your purpose if you're empty inside. 3, train your emotional stamina. Endurance isn't just about pushing through workouts. It's about pushing through heartbreak, through betrayal, through seasons where nothing makes sense, but you trust anyway. That's real strength. The ability to feel deeply and still move forward, to break and still rebuild, to cry and still rise. Chosen ones don't just survive hard seasons. They are shaped by them. Like the horse, you must learn to carry the emotional weight of life with grace. Here's what I've seen in every person who rises. They had every reason to give up, but they didn't. Not because they had perfect circumstances, but because they had an inner fire that refused to die, a purpose that pulled them, a vision that sustained them, a mindset that said, even if I crawl, I will move forward. And that's you. Even on your worst days, you're still moving. You're still trying. You're still becoming. That is endurance. Let me offer you this truth. You don't have to do it all today. You just have to not quit today. That's it. Progress is built in invisible inches. And one day, those inches become transformation. So stop measuring your growth in outcomes. Start measuring it in consistency. Did you show up today? Did you honor your rituals? Did you take care of your body and your peace? Then you're winning. It's not about how fast you run. It's about how long you're willing to carry your mission. So ask yourself today, where in my life am I chasing speed over sustainability? What part of me is asking for rest, not resistance? How can I build rituals that carry me even when I want to give up? You are not weak for slowing down. You are wise. You are not falling behind. You are learning to last. And the longer you last, the deeper you grow. And the deeper you grow, the higher you rise. If strength is the engine, adaptability is the steering wheel. So many people burn out, not because they lack power, but because they don't know how to pivot. They push harder when they should shift. They stay stuck when they should evolve. They keep repeating old strategies in a world that's constantly changing. The fox doesn't make that mistake. It doesn't resist change. It doesn't panic in uncertainty. It adapts with precision and cunning clarity. And in today's world, that's not just smart, it's survival. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like life threw you into a situation where nothing made sense anymore? Where the tools that used to work suddenly didn't? Where the version of you that got here couldn't take you further? That's the moment most people break. But chosen ones, they adjust because what got you through one chapter can't always carry you into the next. And the fox understands this better than any other creature. The fox doesn't try to overpower the environment. It studies it. It reads patterns. It watches silently. And when it moves efficiently. You'll rarely see a fox make the same mistake twice. Not because it's perfect, but because it learns quickly. That's the difference between those who survive and those who thrive. Survivors repeat. Thrivers evolve. Let's talk about flexibility. You've probably heard the phrase, be like water. But today, I want you to consider, be like the fox. The fox doesn't flow aimlessly. It flows with strategy. It asks, what's the smartest move here? What's the quiet advantage I can take? How can I pivot without panic? And it does this without the need for attention. That's powerful because true strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's calculated, subtle, patient. I remember a season of my life when everything fell apart. Plans I'd worked on for years collapsed overnight. People I trusted disappeared. And I sat in that silence asking, what now? And that's when I realized something life-changing. Sometimes you're not being punished. You're being repositioned. But you won't see that if you're rigid. You'll only see it if you're adaptable. If you're willing to unlearn, relearn, and reinvent. That's fox energy. Agile, alert, always evolving. Here's the truth most people avoid. You can't become your future self by clinging to your past self. The fox is a master at shedding identity. It doesn't need to prove consistency to anyone. It changes when the situation changes. And you must do the same. Stop trying to be who you were. Start becoming who you're called to be. Because chosen ones aren't just strong, they're smart. They don't fear change, they study it, embrace it, and lead through it. So how do you train yourself like the fox? 1. Learn how to analyze without emotion. Emotions are data, not always directions. The fox doesn't panic, it observes, and you must too. When life shifts, pause. Zoom out, ask, what pattern am I missing? What's the opportunity inside this disruption? What can I do differently next time? Be curious, not just reactive. Cox, sharpen your mental agility. Don't let your mind become stiff. Read beyond your industry. Challenge your routines. Debate your own beliefs. Flexibility is a muscle, and if you don't use it, you'll break under pressure. The fox thrives because it stays mentally awake, and you must do the same. 3. Master the art of quiet strategy. Fox don't roar. They don't flaunt. They move silently, letting their results speak. In a world where everyone's oversharing and overperforming, be the one who builds in silence. Protect your next move. Keep your plan sacred. Let your growth be louder than your announcements. That's not secrecy. That's wisdom. One of the things I admire most about the fox, it's not afraid to change direction without explanation. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't wait for popular opinion. If something no longer serves it, it pivots. And that's your permission slip. You don't owe consistency to outdated dreams. You don't owe explanation to people committed to misunderstanding you. You only owe loyalty to your evolution. So ask yourself today, where am I staying rigid out of fear? Where is life asking me to evolve, but I've been resisting it? What's my smartest next step, not just the loudest one? Because adaptability isn't just survival anymore. It's how you outgrow patterns. It's how you outsmart obstacles. It's how you become undeniable. Let me leave you with this. The strongest tree may break in the wind, but the one that bends survives the storm. You were never meant to stay stuck. You were built to shift, expand, and become. Like the fox, you don't need to be the loudest. You don't need to be the biggest. You just need to be the most aware. And when you combine strategy with soul, you become unshakable. Everyone wants power, but no one wants to go slow. We glorify the quick, the instant, the overnight success story. But the turtle knows something this world has forgotten. Speed means nothing without direction. And more importantly, it knows this. You can be strong without being fast. You can win without rushing. You can thrive by protecting your peace, not by sacrificing it. Because real inner power, it's patient and it's protected. Let's talk about two things the turtle embodies that most people ignore. Boundaries, passions. We misunderstand both. We think boundaries are walls. We think patience is passivity. But boundaries are not a form of rejection. They're a declaration of self-worth. And patience is not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing at the right time. The turtle is not weak. It's wise. It moves with intention. It carries its home on its back. It doesn't seek safety from the world. It creates it within itself. Let me ask you something. Do you feel stretched too thin right now? Pulled in 100 directions? Exhausted from saying yes too much and no too little? You're not alone. And the truth is, you don't need more hustle. You need more honor for your energy, your peace, your space. That's what the turtle teaches us. It doesn't try to be everywhere at once. It doesn't try to impress anyone. It moves slowly, deliberately, with sacred boundaries. I remember a season in my life when I said yes to everything. Yes to opportunities I wasn't aligned with. Yes to relationships that drained me. Yes to rhythms that robbed me of rest. I thought I was being productive. But what I was really doing was bleeding energy. And I learned painfully that boundaries aren't selfish. They're spiritual armor. If you don't protect your peace, you'll end up performing for people who don't even care about your purpose. The turtle is the master of self-containment. Its strength is in its ability to retreat, not to hide, but to heal, to reset, to recharge, to realign. That's a kind of wisdom most people never practice because they're too addicted to being seen. But chosen ones, they know how to step back. They know how to disconnect not from life, but from noise. They know how to say, my inner world matters more than outside approval. And that's where true power begins. Let's talk about patience. You've heard, slow and steady wins the race. But it's more than a quote. It's a lifestyle. The turtle doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't compare itself to the cheetah or the gazelle. It just keeps moving day by day, inch by inch, step by step, because the turtle knows the finish line isn't for the fastest. It's for the most faithful. And that's what you need to remember today. Your journey doesn't have to be fast. It has to be faithful. Consistency over intensity, focus over frenzy, presence over pressure. The turtle doesn't live for the timeline, it lives for the truth. And if you're honest, much of your stress isn't about where you are, it's about where you think you should be. But what if you're exactly where you're meant to be? And the lesson isn't in going faster, it's in slowing down long enough to see what matters. So, how do we practice turtle wisdom? Uno, establish sacred boundaries. Start saying no, not to be rude, but to be real. Say no to energy draining people. Say no to projects that don't align. Say no to performing for people who only applaud your hustle, not your health. Your peace is not up for negotiation. 2, honor divine timing. Stop trying to force open what life hasn't unlocked yet. Sometimes the delay is the development. Sometimes the wait is the work. Your breakthrough is not late, it's being built. And every moment you stay grounded, you're laying a stronger foundation. Like the turtle, you're not missing out. You're moving with wisdom, not urgency. 3, create your inner sanctuary. The turtle carries its home on its back, which means no matter where it goes, it's safe. You need to build the same thing internally. A calm nervous system, a disciplined mind, a self-loving heart. Because when your peace is portable, nothing external can rob you of your power. You become rooted in yourself. And that's what makes you unstoppable. Let me tell you this clearly. The world will try to rush you, push you, distract you. But every time you slow down with purpose, every time you protect your peace, every time you say no to what's not aligned, you are doing sacred work. And in that stillness, you're not falling behind. You're getting stronger. You're getting clearer. You're getting ready. So ask yourself today, where am I sacrificing my peace for performance? What boundaries do I need to set lovingly and firmly? How can I honor divine timing instead of forcing my own? You are not behind. You are not late. You are not small. You are steady. You are sacred. You are becoming. And like the turtle, you're headed exactly where you're meant to go in perfect timing, with quiet power and grounded grace. Transformation doesn't happen when you change your goals. It happens when you change your identity. We all say we want growth. We want to evolve, rise, become someone greater. But growth is not about improvement. It's about becoming unrecognizable to your former self. And no symbol captures that truth more beautifully or more brutally than the butterfly. You see, we admire the wings, we admire the colors, the freedom, the lightness, but we forget the process that gave birth to them. A process filled with pain, surrender, isolation, and identity death. The caterpillar doesn't get upgraded, it gets undone. It doesn't just sprout wings on top of its old form. It dissolves, breaks down, becomes nothing, so it can become something else entirely. That's not change. That's rebirth. Let me ask you, are you trying to fly while still clinging to your old shape? You say you want to elevate. You say you're ready for the next chapter, but you're still holding on to the habits, the relationships, the beliefs that only serve the old version of you. And here's the truth. You can't carry old baggage into a new identity. You can't access the next level with the same mindset that kept you stuck. The caterpillar had to surrender everything. It was to become everything it was meant to be. And so will you. When I think about the butterfly, I think about the sacred in between. The cocoon, it's quiet, it's dark, it's lonely, and it's necessary. That's where real transformation happens, in the cocoon seasons of life. When no one's watching, when you feel invisible, when nothing looks like progress, but everything is breaking and remaking beneath the surface. So if you're in a season right now where it feels like everything is falling apart, good, you're in the cocoon. You're not being buried, you're being built. But here's what most people do. They resist the cocoon. They want the wings, but not the weight. They want the transformation, but not the undoing. But you don't get to skip the surrender. There's no fast forward button on evolution. Transformation demain, letting go of who you were proud of being, releasing stories you once believed were true, mourning the identity that helped you survive, but can't help you thrive. And that's not weakness. That's maturity. Growth is not always addition. Sometimes it's subtraction. It's saying, I no longer chase people who drain me. I no longer tolerate what wounds my spirit. I no longer betray myself to belong. This is what transformation looks like. It's not pretty. It's not Instagrammable, but it's sacred. Because the moment you choose your becoming over your comfort, you activate the divine unfolding. Let's get practical. How do you step into butterfly transformation? Let go completely. Make a list. What habits, identities, beliefs, or relationships no longer serve the version of you you're becoming? Be honest. Be ruthless. Be brave. This isn't about blame, it's about alignment. You don't owe the old you loyalty. You owe the real you permission to rise. 2, embrace the cocoon season. If you feel like no one sees you right now, lean in. If it feels dark and quiet, don't run. Sit with it, journal, meditate, reflect, cry, grieve what you're letting go of. This is where your wings are forming. But remember, you can't become a butterfly if you keep ripping yourself out of the cocoon too soon. Stay with the process. 3, choose a new identity, not a new goal, a new identity. Start asking, who do I need to be to live the life I desire? How would that version of me think, act, speak, and decide? What does that version of me no longer tolerate? Transformation is not wishful thinking. It's identity alignment. So show up as that version today. Not perfectly, but consistently. That's how wings grow. And maybe this is the most important thing I can tell you. Forgive yourself. You can't rise while dragging the weight of shame. You can't fly while beating yourself up for who you were. You did the best you could with what you knew. But now you know more. Now you're ready. Now you're different. So forgive the old you. Thank them and let them go. They were never meant to fly, but you are. So ask yourself today, what am I afraid to let go of, even though I've outgrown it? Am I willing to be misunderstood while I transform? What version of myself am I ready to become, even if it means losing who I used to be? Because when you say yes to that, you stop crawling, you stop surviving, and you start soaring. You move from identity to destiny. You become the person your soul has always known you were meant to be. And just like the butterfly, your flight becomes a symbol, not of perfection, but of rebirth, of what happens when someone stops settling and starts surrendering. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of the real one. So take a breath, close your eyes, and say this with me. I'm no longer who I was. I am who I'm becoming. And that changes everything